So I wrote a book 4 years ago called Devilland, England Under Siege, 1588 to 1688, that was published in 2021. And the one thing that I was quite surprised was the number of people who said it had really changed their view of James VI and First. Their view had been very much almost that stereotype from Sellers and Yeatman's 1930 satirical classic 1066 and all that famously says King James I slobbered at the mouth and had favourites. He was thus a bad king. And lots of people just repeated that back to me. And I was surprised at how entrenched that caricature still was. Then I noticed that there was an anniversary coming up, and just talking with my agent and publisher, I said, I've been thinking about James for years. I realised I didn't have a huge amount of time, but I want to write about James, and I'm just so grateful to Penguin, my editor at Penguin, Simon Winder, that he was very keen on the idea too. I don't think I was surprised. I think I was amazed at how endlessly interesting he is. I mean, he is absorbing. He's occasionally infuriating. He's quite funny, but he is never dull. He is interested in absolutely everything. I mean, he has an opinion about absolutely everything. So I think one of the things I wanted to convey was just his sheer energy. I mean, part of that old sort of Whiggish crude stereotype was that, he slobbered at the mouth and had favourites, and he was really quite indolent. And I mean, he's anything but. He's actually somebody who's quite physically disabled. There's a lot of retrospective diagnoses now of the various neurological and musculoskeletal conditions from which he suffered. But this is someone who, as he says, can do more in 1 hour than people can do in a day. He spends many hours, many days riding out in the outdoors, but he also is phenomenally fast at dealing with government business. And I just wanted, I think, to try and convey some of that sheer energy that goes with James. Well, I think all historians suffer from insatiable curiosity, and biographies are really nutritious in that way. I think everybody, not just historians, but lots of people can appreciate things through the frame of a life, because it's all the perspective we bring to bear. So somehow seeing how people in different ages navigate both things that are extremely different to our life today, but also things that are very, very similar, I think it gives a wonderfully sort of relatable prism through which you can explain whole periods, whole cultures, whole civilizations through a single life. I love historical biographies, so I've always read lots and lots of biographies, across lots of different periods too. But I think some people who can manage to convey large changes that are going on in history at the same time as a person, I think I'm less keen on the ones that are very, very rigidly chronological, where you can sometimes go from really quite a mundane personal detail to something quite large on a big stage. But I think when people can somehow navigate the personal and the bigger canvas, that's a huge skill. Huge amounts that are relevant. I mean, this is the first king to rule both Scotland and England, and he had a very clear vision of, he felt that it would be automatic that the minute he acceded to the English throne that there would be a new country created called Great Britain, and that never happened in his lifetime. He was bitterly disappointed by it. To some extent it happened in 1707 under his great-granddaughter Queen Anne, but even then there were differences from them. James had envisaged just one country, one parliament, one laws, one religion, and that's very different. But I think James was very interested in having that debate and investing the whole idea of British Union with real psychological and tangible heft. And then he was bitterly disappointed when he came to England and he found that any discussion about Scotland actually touched a whole lot of insecurities in England. So if he talked about free trade, that raised sort of stereotypes about Scots indigence. If he talked about legal union, that raised sort of common lawyers' hackles. Everything he did that talked about union would sort of meet a very negative reaction. But I think in a world in which, we live in a multinational state, at the moment its constitutional future is pretty uncertain, I think James understood very clearly how important it is to share geopolitical borders with stable, secure allies. And as he said, if after this ends in a big rupture, judge you how difficult that will be. And I think we only need to look at the news today to think actually geopolitics and the political borders we share with other countries have never been more important. It's just a huge honour. I'm surprised because naively I think I had never really thought of myself as a biographer. I think the boundaries between history and biography are very porous. But I'd always thought of myself as a historian, and then suddenly when I found out, I suddenly started thinking, when I found out I'd been shortlisted, I started seeing myself as a biographer, and I just look at the terrific biographies that have won this prize, and I'm just really surprised, but really thrilled. I don't think I'm as fraction as thrilled as James would have been. James would have adored this, and just to be talked about, he would have, he'd have been on cloud nine.